Welcome to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Tonight, we're tackling a topic that touches almost every family: how to care for and communicate with our aging parents with compassion, with clarity, and respect. As people live longer, adult children are increasingly navigating difficult conversations about health, money, driving, housing, safety, and independence, often while juggling careers and their own kids. And these tasks can feel very, very overwhelming, but handled well, they can help our parents live better, safer, and more dignified lives for longer. Joining me now is Laura Tamblyn Watts, and she's the CEO of CanAge, Canada's national seniors advocacy organization, and a leading expert on law, aging, and elder justice. Laura, welcome to Empowered. I'm very, very happy to have you here today.
Delighted to be here.
I wanted to say as well that you are the author of an incredible book called Managing Your Aging Parents. And this is what I want to focus on today. So let's begin. When adult children first realize that their parents are starting to struggle, what are the most important first conversations that you have to have at the kitchen table before a crisis happens?
I think it's first really important to take a deep breath because really, you know, the book Let's Talk About Aging Parents is really about not just the trips and the tricks and the hacks and the navigation, but it's kind of about how you're going to get through these things. It's really important to know that you don't swoop in and kind of get things sorted out and then zoom out. Susan from Calgary on the weekend doesn't come in and sell the house and move out mom and dad. That doesn't work. Take a deep breath and really focus on the questions. What is it that you are worried about? What's the issue that you're trying to solve for? Now, there may be a number of different issues. That's fine. But let's take the big family house. Are you worried that mom's living there and you want her to move? But why? Is it social isolation? Are you worried she's lonely? That's one set of solutions. Are you worried she's going to fall down the stairs? That's a different issue. Are you worried that she can't get around because she doesn't drive anymore and it's a transportation issue? That's a third issue. So really, let's parse out for you, what are the problems you're trying to solve for? And then we can build a plan to suit that.
I love that because you know what? You're looking at the big picture and trying to delve into, how to fix it and how to come up with a solution. So
Yeah.
many families feel paralyzed between wanting to respect a parent's independence and worrying about their safety, just as you said. So how can they find that balance in day-to-day decisions about driving, about living alone, or accepting help at home?
One of the best ways to think about it is to think about how you would like things approached. And so if you don't want people coming in and telling you what to do, probably they don't like that either,
Yeah.
right? If you think about what are the issues that we're trying to solve for, opening up the conversation's not a one and done kind of thing. So let's imagine it's a series of conversations. One of the great things that parents like to do is give you advice, right?
Yep.
I tell you, it was really hard to get my hands on the documents that make me the power of attorney and the executor of my dad's estate. Even though I know that I am appointed, I could never get my hands on it just for one reason or the next. But I started asking him his advice on things. And let me tell you how fast those documents came out. So think about asking them about issues that you might have. Imagine the conversations are not about them getting older, but an emergency. So I actually do myself at 54. I need my knees fixed. One of the great ways to have a conversation with them is to say, "Oh, I'm sure glad I moved into this apartment. It's one level, and I don't know. What have you thought about doing if your knee, if you fell down and your knee happened? Not making it about age, but making it about something that happens. Let me tell you, they've thought of it, right? They've thought of it. And if they don't want to talk about that, have a proxy conversation. Ask what their friends are doing. They'll be all too happy to tell you what their friends are doing. Oh, their daughter put them in that terrible home, or isn't it great that we got, guardrails on that? That's a great way to start the conversation in a safe and inclusive way.
So, at your work at CanAge, what are the biggest misconceptions you see Canadians having about aging and what good aging with dignity should look like for our parents?
It's not that hard. There's 5 big things you need to do in order to have good, healthy longevity for your parents. Number 1, get vaccinated. All your best vaccines. Number 2, don't fall. And there's a lot we can talk about not falling. Number 3, stay connected to your community. You need people in your life and you got to keep getting connected. Number 4, you got to move somewhere. And number 5, you have to make sure that you're having these conversations.
Wonderful. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today we're discussing how to manage your aging parents with Laura Tamblyn Watts. So, Laura, your book focuses on essential conversations with aging parents. What are the 2 or 3 concrete phrases or approaches that help start these tough talks without putting parents on the defensive?
Having those what if conversations are helpful. So trying to make it about some kind of emergency. Dad, when you're skiing out at Whistler, even though you're 85 years old, and if you turned your ankle, I wondered, how would you get to the grocery store? Having these sort of what if conversations, but not making it confronting, that's really helpful. Another way that's useful is to find out what's important to them. Now that sounds like it's an obvious thing, but it's often not. We know our parents as parents. We don't always know them as people. And so it's really helpful to understand what they think is important. Is it having access to a garden? Is that the thing that they really care about? Is it actually the physical sense of being in a car versus driving? Like they like to go for a drive, but do they care about driving, right? So really getting a sense and asking them. The great way of doing that is getting them to tell some stories about their youth, some stories about what's going on, some things that are happening now, and then ask them what their friends are doing and kind of weave those 2 things together. You'd be amazed what you find out. And you don't have to do as much as you get older. What you want to do is concentrate on those really important things. So if it's being connected to close relationships or that bridge club or the curling club, then if they can't stay in the big family house, that they're going to want to be walking distance from that curling club or from that bridge club. Or if you're looking for a retirement home, maybe it has to be one that they can do some gardening in.
Yeah, this is great. Now, what happens if you speak to your parents and they don't want to tell you and they're angry?
Yeah, it's okay. And that's normal. I mean, first of all, it's really important to remember that if they're mentally capable, they get to make their own decisions. And if they're an older person, if they're, say, north of 75, they've definitely thought about this, right? But we need to help to support the conversation about what's still important to them now and what are they finding frustrating. Change management is real. So it's not a one and done conversation. I'd say start off with some of the things that they want to change, right? And help them with that. There's a little bit of getting going, which can make a difference. That trying things out is really good as well. So if they are thinking about maybe they need to move to a retirement home or something like that, maybe they have that idea, but no one will do anything about it. Maybe they floated it a few times, but then you bring it up and they're mad at you. You know, Find out who's staying there that they know and go for lunch, right? Go for lunch at that retirement home and make it a visit. Well, then maybe there's a social club that's happening at that retirement home. So you can kind of warm up the water. And all of a sudden you think to yourself, you know what? Instead of going to Florida this year for many reasons, maybe actually it would be fun to hang out with your friend in this particular retirement home for 2 weeks and see. I don't know, up to you. Let it be their idea. No one likes to be told what to do.
This is very, very true. Now let's talk about siblings because that is a little testy. Siblings often disagree about what mom or dad needs. From your legal and advocacy perspective, what strategies help families move from conflict and guilt to a more united, practical plan of care? Because so many people go, oh, no, I feel guilty if I put them in a home.
Yeah. Well, and you might, right? I mean, there's a whole chapter on guilt too. Part of what's really important to remember is your siblings are your siblings and your relationships were probably pretty well established a long time ago. I still remember my brother, who's turning, I think, 58 this year, when he chopped the head off my Barbie, and I'm 54. The relationships don't change. And under stress, they become even often more fractious. So don't assume that everything's going to be wonderful. That's going to be important to the parents as well. If they think that they're going to make everybody joint as power of attorney, but one person lives in Thailand and the two that live close by hate each other, this is not a good strategy. So stemming from that, what's the problem we're trying to solve for issue helps them come to the situation. Well, you know what? We don't want to make them be your financial power of attorney. They don't even file their own taxes. How can we make sure that we're working from a capacity building point of view? My book actually has a checklist to help you go through all the different tasks. And for some people who live far away, like that one in Thailand, maybe they can help with some financial support because these days so much of that can be done online, whereas that close to home person who maybe doesn't file their taxes, maybe they're the right person to help mom get to that bridge club or pop down to the doctor's office.
Okay, so when we come back, we're going to discuss more about, managing your aging parents, and we're going to talk about how families can recognize when communication is a problem. So please don't go away. We'll be right back with more of Laura Tamblyn Watts and her book, How to Manage Your Aging Parents. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today we're discussing how to manage your aging parents with Laura Tamblyn Watts, whose book is actually called Let's Talk About Aging Parents. My apologies to you. Let's Talk About Aging Parents is the name of the book. So let's talk about how can families recognize when a communication problem is masquerading as a legal or medical problem, and what can they do differently in those moments?
One of the big issues, of course, that we think about is there dementia? Is there cognitive impairment? And there really are some signs that you can look for. But there's a lot of things that look like maybe dementia, but actually aren't dementia. They are affecting it. The big one, of course, being urinary tract infections, kidney infections, bladder infections. And so if your mom or dad or whoever is in your life is starting to be confused, the easiest, best thing you can do is get a blood test and a urinalysis. And it is really important you do so. This is especially true for older men who may not have that same history that younger women may have experienced over their lives with these and may not recognize it. In particular, older people are very susceptible to UTIs and urinary tract complications. And it really does cause confusion. They don't need Alzheimer's support. They need some sulfa drugs and some cranberry juice, and they'll be fine soon. The other one that's a really big one is whether or not they've had what we call post-operative delirium. And that doesn't just mean that they've had surgery and it's 1 or 2 days later. That is most common. Most post-surgical delirium goes away after 72 hours. But it is incredibly common. What many people don't realize is that actually it can last up to 6 months. And when I ask people if they've had any medical interventions, what I'm really trying to get a hold of is, have they had anesthetic? So sometimes they've had dental surgery and it's causing that delirium that can happen. So that's a different thing to look for. But of course, dementia is a real thing. We need to pay attention to that and make sure that we are. Now, if you can't find your keys for your car, that's not dementia. Let me tell you, that's good too, because I can never find my keys in the car, right? It's important to know that the person grows old. They are who they always were. So I'm sure that's going to be my problem when I'm older as well. So if you can't find your keys, that's not dementia. If you're in the car holding your keys in your hand and you don't know what they're for, that's a big concern, right?
Yes.
So it's the lack of connection between one part and the other. Yes, repeating and repeating and repeating is true. Lots of people like to repeat the old stories. That's not what we're talking about. I mean, really just the thing that you've said, I put my shoes on. Oh, I can't see that I'm wearing my shoes. I should put my shoes on. Oh, I can't see that I'm wearing my shoes. That kind of repeat is a cue. If they start changing their sleeping patterns, that could be a chicken and egg problem. So one of the things that can cause confusion is poor sleep, but it's also one of the things that can help to signal you that maybe you do need to get checked out for a dementia diagnosis. So that's one of those issues that no matter which way it ends up, you should have someone help you with it. A big issue that we often see with people who do get confused is that they are not able to manage their medications very well anymore. Have I taken my meds? I don't think so. I better take my meds. Haven't I taken my meds? I don't think so. I better take my meds. And all of a sudden, you've taken them 5 times, or you've forgotten to take medications at all. So having those pill boxes and medication blister packs that the pharmacy can do for you is great. And having reminders are really important, but that can be because of dementia, but effect can also cause cognitive impairment and confusion because you're taking your medications wrong as well. All of these things are important. One that I will flag for you, if you're starting to feel some concern about paranoia, someone's breaking in at 3 in the morning and stealing the bananas kind of paranoia, pay attention to that. Because the way the brain works, if you're lapsing, it fills in the blanks. And, I had 5 bananas. I don't remember eating bananas. Now there's 3 bananas. And where you go is someone must be breaking into my house and taking the bananas. That kind of logical reasoning, if it's getting to that point, you do need to look for a mental capacity assessment, probably sooner than later.
Wow, that's a lot to understand and absorb right now. So for viewers who feel overwhelmed, because what you just said is very overwhelming, what are the non-negotiable planning documents, that decisions that they should help their parents put in place, like the powers of attorney,
Yeah.
wills, or healthcare directives? And we have 30 seconds before we go to the next break.
You need to make sure that you've got somebody to make your decisions legal that deal with your body and deal with your money,
Yeah.
right? And many jurisdictions call them powers of attorney. Some call them different things. But in every jurisdiction, while you're still alive but mentally incapable, the documents for your money and the documents for your personal, you need that. And then afterwards, of course, once you're dead, you need your will. You better have done it before you died because it doesn't help afterwards.
We'll be right back with more. Let's talk about aging parents. Welcome back to Empowered. I'm Elizabeth Naumovski. Today we're discussing how to manage your aging parents with CEO of CanAge, Canada's national seniors advocacy organization, and author of Let's Talk About Aging Parents, a real-life guide to solving problems with 27 essential conversations. Laura Tamblyn Watts, thank you so much for being here today. I can't believe how quickly this entire show has just flown by with so much educational information. So let's go right into it. Financial abuse of older adults is a huge concern. What practical steps can adult children take to help protect their parents financially while still respecting the autonomy and privacy?
Really important. And I can't tell you how critical it is that we focus on this. Right now, it's about a $3 billion a year problem with a B. It's about a $3 billion a year problem in this country. And it is micro targeted with AI now. So it's not just that old, oh, don't click on the email or don't answer the text message. It's actually incredibly sophisticated. We can sometimes use low tech safeguards, if you want to call them that. Nothing's a solution, but a safeguard to a high tech problem. So have certain keywords that you use in your family that you make sure, name of your cottage, or I don't know, your first cat you had, whatever it is that you know that you know. And so if there's a concern with communication, each of you should check in and say, all right, what flowers did I have in my bouquet at my wedding? Whatever it is that you come up with, make sure that you have that. Those are just about the only things that the AI are not going to be able to fill in anymore. Many people will say put everything in joint. That's not what I say. Certainly some tax reasons that people may wish to do certain things. I tell you to caution on that. It's much better, in my respectful view, to have a power of attorney document, a financial decision-making document. You can decide with your parents, should it happen in advance? Like it starts in effect right away and then continues on if they get hit by a bus, God forbid, into the point of incapability. That means you don't need to trigger it. You can just go through and it will continue on. Certainly while they're alive and mentally capable, you can give them a hand and get used to it. And that can build confidence and trust as well. Maybe you take over some of paying the bills out of the cottage account, for instance, but they still have oversight. So they're getting to feel like maybe you're getting some comfort in that. So if they are no longer able to do it, that you've had some good training ground. The only problem with that is if you're doing something inappropriately, or more likely your sibling or the new best friend is doing something inappropriate, they do have access to the accounts. If it comes into effect upon incapability, so you get hit by a bus, for instance, and then you're incapable, you got to spring it. You got to get a mental capacity assessment. That can be really hard. Most people don't want to take a mental capacity assessment, and in many jurisdictions, you've got to pay for them. So really think through which of those two systems you need to have. And then don't just make this about your parents. You need them too. If you're over the age of majority, you need these documents. So doing them together
Mhm.
feels far less threatening than me telling you as my aging parents that you need to do them, because we're all going to do them together.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So let's talk about, families waiting until after a fall,
Oh,
hospital
yeah.
stay, cognitive change to act. From a legal and safety perspective, what are the risks of waiting? Because a lot of people just don't want to deal with this. And
Yeah.
what timelines do we wish families followed instead?
Listen, people need to understand not everyone wants to do this stuff, and that's okay.
Mhm.
I say don't do any of these major conversations within 72 hours of blowing out candles, serving a turkey, or doing whatever other family thing that you do. You can bring it up, but don't have these conversations then. It's going to wreck it. You can always use your I statements, right? You can talk about what you're doing and how your planning is and what you're thinking about, and invite them to talk about what they've been thinking about and their friends. Establish that. There's some things around the house. Falling is the worst thing that can happen. It is terrible. If you fall and break a hip as an older person in this country, your chances of dying are about 50% within 2 years. So double banisters, slip mats, all of that stuff is really important. Rearrange the furniture. They're usually pretty good about that because they know what it means like to fall. But getting some of those accommodations in place in your house ahead of time matters. And there's new federal grants and provincial grants to help you do some of that. So if they know that there's some money that they can get or some money that they can claim, those conversations can go easier about modifying the home now.
Laura Tamblyn Watts, Let's Talk About Aging Parents, an incredible book. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.